Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to episode 73 of the Brewgooders Dynamic Duo Beer, Comics, and political celebrations. Go and get him. Where is he? Go and get him.
Oh, I'll go and get our other guest just a sec. Oh, here he comes. Oh, he's just getting his mittens on. There we go.
Awesome audio. So for everyone listening in, Colin's just brought out Bernie Sanders in his knitwear.
We had to somewhere, it was only fair. He's been everywhere else today.
Totally. We're not a political podcast, but we like Bernie Sanders. Right. Okay. This week we were going to do our usual beer and comics blather, but we've taken advantage of the fact that we've folk are stuck in their houses again and got nothing to do. So we've been able to get guests in that I've been trying to get in since about the summertime when I was lucky enough to be a guest on their podcast, which since I was on the podcast has gone through a wee bit of a rebranding. So we're going to bring them on and chat about it, and it's actually like one of my favourite podcasts ever. So this is if I hadn't known one of the hosts since he was like 14, I would be like starstruck, but it's fine because we're going to bring on Jamie and Tom from the USUK Chronicles podcast.
Ooh.
Once I click the button. Hey guys.
Oh mate, what a little intro. I feel slightly honoured. That was beautiful.
I get annoyed because actually Tom does the best intros of any podcast I know. So Colin, Tom does these really awesome, like, ladies and gentlemen, and they're really, really good.
I watched some of the Star Wars movie reviews.
Oh yeah? Yeah. That's cool. I mean, they're not ours, but
yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, we appreciate all the same because it's still part of the USUK channel. It's still part of our podcast, but it's just a different show entirely with Al and Tom, who actually run and own our entire channel. So, but no, I appreciate you checking us out, man. And Jeff, thank you so much for that intro, man. I'm just like, damn, I don't know what to say. Just blown away, man. Blown away.
We normally have music and stuff, but fireworks. But I don't know. We used them up the other day.
Yeah, celebrating yesterday, I think. I know who you guys are. Colin is aware of you guys because I talk about you quite a lot. But for those that don't know you, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Go on, Jamie.
Well, I'm Jamie, or as I'm known on the show, Mr. Sleekier Than Sleek. And I always get this wrong with webcams. And that one there, that's my co-host, Tom. The beautiful ginger-bearded Scotsman. We host a show called USUK Chronicles. It's part of the USUK network, so you can just call us Chronicles if it makes life a lot easier for you. And we like to chronicle people's stories. So we just sit down and talk to different guests each week and chronicle their stories, basically. And it could be anyone. This week, our show was with someone that runs a wrestling Instagram page. So we talk to all different sorts of people, and yeah, we absolutely love it. But Jeff, you were on our old show, weren't you? Superhero Bar Fight.
Yeah, well, I remember I was saying to Colin this week, Colin dropped some comics off, and obviously when you guys were supposed to join us, and we had to delay your joining us, but we were going to try and get you on. I think you were still Superhero Bar Fight at that point as well. I was on your podcast last year, and I really enjoyed it, and then I posted about it like the next day on our show, and we ended up stealing all the so and so versus so and so's, and it played Superhero Bar Fight on our show. With it was John Irvin we had that week with John, who's who is a member of is an official Ghostbuster, like a card carrying member. I'm a fan of USUK Chronicles. It's amazing just seeing some of the folk you get on, and I don't know if it's an age thing. Obviously, I think I'm of similar age as you two, but what I think is quite incredible is sort of your guests are folk that somebody as a guy in my mid-30s, I'm like, that's pretty awesome. Like one of my more recent highlights was the Slay Dougie episode.
Oh my God.
So Colin and those who are like, what's a Slay Dougie? So Slay Dougie are a metal band, but they specialise in covers of CBeebies theme tunes. And they've got, I think they went viral with the Stick song. Who, if you've got a child under the age of 5,
I think I know the words.
Stick.
That was a particularly good one, and also and I wanted to bring it up, and this is how I can tie in the comic stuff again. When you had Zordon himself on, he did mention the Power Ranger comics as being like a great extension of the Power Ranger series, and I've reviewed the Power Rangers on this show quite a few times because it is a really awesome comic series, and it's almost like it's been written by. I think it was mentioned in your show. Like it feels like it was written by folk who were Power Ranger fans, like in 1992, 1993, when like it was that weird multicolored, insane television show on that Saturday morning. It feels like that's who's writing it, but are actually looking at it from a more sort of philosophical and complicated way, and they're like, we need to make Power Rangers more than just 5 multicolored teens beating the shit out of big zombies every week, you know?
I mean, we just tried to make the interviews a bit different. We don't want to be like, so why do you want to be an actor? Do you know what I mean? We just sit there and go, how's things, man? How's your day? What's going on? You know, what made you want to do that? Oh, you went to dance school. Why'd you go to dance school? What'd you do there? You know, what made you want to do that? You know, how did you fall into that? We just try and make it different and try and change it up rather than usual. So why do you play guitar? Do you like guitar? So it's just, you know, it's just literally like having mates around and just sitting and chatting like you've known them for ages. That's the kind of feel we go for with the show, really.
That's really amazing.
It pays off, and we've managed to keep a good communication, I suppose. My brain went dead then.
Rapport
with our guests. That's the one. With our guests, because we just have like a friendly conversation with them, and there's so many of them. I just casually drop an email every now and again and be like, "Hey, how you doing? Would you have a good New Year?" And they're like, "Hey, it was great fun." And you know, I've even had another guest just email me randomly out of the blue saying, "Hey, how you doing? How did that episode go?" You know, because we just sit there and we just have a general chinwag with these people. And people like David Fielding with Zordon, you could tell, like the start of the interview, he was like, "Another interview?" And at the end of it, he was just like, "This was awesome. I had great fun with you guys." You know, and plus, you know, he said Zordon's catchphrase for us, so that made my life.
I think that was the idea behind us having beer, is we thought that would be a nice icebreaker with comic people, and then we found it since that kind of half the people that make comics don't drink.
Oh no!
Yeah. Or the other side, we were really lucky quite early on to have. I always remember meeting Emily Tanzin, who's she's an amazing lady in Scotland and sort of North England, and she's just a great lady. But she's a really good advocate, an incredible advocate, I should say, for sort of promoting a sexual equality within the beer industry. You know. She talked to me quite a lot about when she first started in the beer industry. She worked in a craft beer shop in France, and folk always used to come in and look past her to look for the male manager, assuming that as a woman she wouldn't know anything about beer. And so as she's moved into the UK, she runs Beers Without Beards and a number of other organisations and social groups just promoting women in drink culture and in beer culture. But I remember having her on and having an amazing 20-minute conversation about the intricacies of beer and brewing. And then I asked her about comics, and she was just like, no. And everybody dies in his arse really quickly. So
it's awesome that you would never think, would you, about women in the beer industry? It's not, because again, I was like, I think with, you know, you got more female referees now, female referees in football and in American sports, that sort of thing. It's crazy how that hasn't been a thing anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it does when these things are. It's because we celebrate equality now, and when you see it, you're like, I know you and me, Tom, both like our American football, and obviously there was a big thing there's a big thing this week about they're having the first female official at the Super Bowl this year, and you're like, oh, that's great. why is that a thing though? Like,
why is that just not normal?
It's one of those things you don't realize how big of a problem it is until it happens. You're like, yeah, that is weird. Why did that happen in the past?
Totally
generational thing, I suppose.
And I've got to say, Beers Without Beards is a fantastic name.
Oh no, it's good. And their logo and their branding's really good as well, actually. And they do quite a lot in Scotland with was it cross border? I think they did one with cross borders, but they cross promote beer with brewing companies now. So they, like brewers will put out beers with like that they've helped put together, which is really smart. Collaborations was the word I was looking for. I always wanted to ask you guys just about because obviously when I first started listening to you, it's because me and Tom have been pals for a wee while, and when I started listening to you, it was because Tom put up a thing on his Facebook saying, "Oh, I'm doing this podcast, Superhero Bar Fight." I always wondered, like, why did Bar Fight end, and why did you move on to USUK Chronicles? When did that happen? It's not a bad thing. They're both amazing podcasts, but I was just noticed it.
So we felt like the bar fight side of things pigeonholed us into geek culture only. And we started to interview like Jarrett Reddick of Bowling for Soup. We interviewed Christina Collins of TikTok fame. We interviewed Daniel Ross, the voice of Donald Duck. And we were like, well, hang on a second. These people aren't associated. We kind of want to branch out and expand and become about the storytelling rather than, oh, you're a superhero podcast. Yeah, I'm all right, thanks. Because we found that the more people we emailed, unless they were sort of related or were up for a bit of fun, were not interested. And we wanted to expand. We felt like we were growing outside of the geek culture, like universe, I suppose. So we wanted to integrate that with everything else. So we could have newscasters, weather reporters, like anyone, artists, like we can get anyone and anyone on. We've got some unbelievable people coming up. I'm so excited for you guys for the next couple of months. The guests we've got lined, we're booked up until March. It's just gonna be delicious.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Plus, like we were starting to run out of fictional characters that were gonna put up a fight because we're like Superman. Yeah, he's gonna fucking destroy Donald Duck, whoever we come up with. It was starting to get a bit difficult without it being ridiculous because some of the fights towards the end were literally, I got this person, you win, sorted. Okay, bye everybody.
You literally get to that stage. Yeah.
Everybody going, who should we pick?
Yeah. Because I think I had Pac-Man towards
our
the end.
podcast. We've gone really niche. Ours is so niche. We get 5 viewers.
We're sitting on 2. We had a weird moment a couple of weeks ago where it was amazing. And I'm sure like folk will I can see the numbers creeping up and they're not dropping off the way they were, and we should hopefully get a few folks saying hi and stuff and do well. But we are quite niche, and to the point that it's very it happens very rarely. But then when somebody knows that we exist, it's like, oh, that's amazing. And I remember Kate from Innerby, who's a local brewer in Inverkeithing, near where we stay, a really, really amazing lady. And I remember being totally bowled over by the fact that she just wasn't surprised we existed. I remember saying like blah 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 brew gooders, and she's like, oh yeah, you're the beer and comic guys. It was like
it's begun. It's begun.
Do you guys get starstruck? We've had guys on the show that for me, Callum Connor. I actually called you Colin, and I corrected you to your son's name, Colin, and then I forgot what your name was. It's only been years, man. Sorry. We've had guys who Colin's been in the comics industry longer than I have, and knows a lot of guys that I'm like, oh my god, and he knows them on. He's on like first name terms with them. We had for example, we had John Lees on last year, who is one of my total comic heroes, and I really kind of struggled through that interview. Do you guys have that? Do you guys have that when I know, for example, Tom, you and me both grew up as massive Bowling for Soup fans, so
Yeah, me and Jamie were both shitting ourselves over that one. I think we got onto the stream about 45 minutes early because we're like, oh my God, right, are you ready? Are you ready for this? Like, what we're gonna do? Okay, so this is going to do first, and then and we kept doing that for ages, and then we were going shit, and then when he appeared, he was like, he's here, fuck. There's that, but now we're just like, hey, how you doing? You all right? It's so nuts.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like we're so nervous beforehand with some of them, and then as soon as they appear, we're like all nerves, just go professional game face. How you doing, Lee? Welcome to USUK Chronicles. You know, it doesn't. And then after, normally what will happen is me or Tom will phone each other and go, "Oh my God, that happened. That was amazing. Oh my God."
Yeah, it used to be a thing, and we still get the nerves beforehand. I think it's because it's like we want this to be good. We want this to be good because we're trying to grow the show. And we want people to be like, fucking hell, I've never heard of this person, but my God, their story was amazing. Because that's what we try now to do as well, is get people that aren't so well known. So people that may be behind the scenes of music videos or behind the photographers or whatever. It's not people that are at the forefront all the time. And just to tell their story, be like, oh yeah, so I've been filming, this horror movie. I've done this. I own this. Spoiler coming up soon. I run this horror movie company, so it's absolutely amazing. It's a massive universe now. It's just awesome, man. Absolutely. So it's like a director and a producer. He does loads of different things, but obviously on screen you don't see him on screen. So yeah, just trying to get the middleman almost.
That's really cool. My favorite one recently when you had Jared from Bowling for Soup on. Like, I know you are both big wrestling fans. There was a whole every time he name dropped somebody, you could just hear that palpable kind of. Whereas like when and there was a bit where like he was like, "Oh, we Bowling for Soup should have played WrestleMania this year," and I could hear you both go, "Oh."
I remember that because part of me was like, why can't we be this world famous podcast? Because we could have just broke the internet by dropping that bit of information. God damn it!
There's always key bits of information out there where you go, oh, this is a little spoiler for you guys. Like, that's cool. But you realise we get about 50 to 60 downloads a week. So, like, it might be world shattering, but, like, not a lot of people are really going to hear it, to be honest with you. And this is why we want to branch out, get other people's shows and be like, listen to USUK Chronicles, guys. Please come and join us. You won't be disappointed.
Absolutely, you won't be, though. I say, I really enjoy it. I'm sorry. I'm red. That's our first somebody saying heaven. So Kevin Parton saying good evening. So,
what's up, Kev?
Good evening, Kevin.
So where do you guys sit on the? We'll try and branch podcasts. Where do you guys sit on the beer and comics thing? I know you're drinking just now. Yeah, you're drinking.
We're joining a bit of Brewdog there, a bit of Duo Polis, whatever that is.
You said you're a Scotsman. You should know what that means, Tom.
I'm pretty sure it's like, I know it's police, isn't it?
Yeah, police.
Yeah, police. That's exactly what I thought it was, but I was like, they're not going to put police on a fucking can, are they? But it's like some sort of oat cream milkshake, and it's fucking delicious. I've never had this before.
I actually haven't had Duopolis before either. Have you had that one, Colin?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't even heard of that one, I have to say. That's completely new to me, so thank you for introducing it.
I mean, you're welcome, but you run a beer podcast. What's going on?
There's quite a lot of beer, man.
That is very true.
It's interesting you were talking about like you pigeonhole yourself as well. So like, because obviously beer's great, and you end up buying something you love, and then you forget until like the Wednesday night that tomorrow night I've got to showcase a new beer, and I've just bought 20 of like one specific lager that
yeah. It's like
I haven't already spoken about this.
Breweries kind of right on our doorstep. In fact, I can go right now, kind of look out my front window, and about 8 miles away from my house, way over in the hills, there's a brewery there. I've never been to it. I've never had a beer from that brewery until I found it in a local shop, and they've got a whole pile of them from the Ferry Brewery, in just a local shop down the road. And because of lockdown, I was, haven't had any. I was planning to go over to the Ferry Brewery, pick up a few cans or a keg or something, but then lockdown happened, and then suddenly we shop down the road selling that stuff, and I can pretty much see it from my house. So stuff can be on your doorstep, but you don't really even know about it when it comes to.
Well, I didn't know that shop existed. I went to our friend Ian, who's the brewer at Beath Brewing. I remember saying that if I want to buy his beer, I have to go to the specialist shop in Dunfermline that we both love, the Caledonian Craft Beer Merchant, or there's a corner shop in the next village that you can drive to. And he was like, "Oh no, there's this new corner shop opened in Took, which is like an area in Dunfermline that's quite close to where me and Colin live, and they're selling one of my IPAs." And it was just like, so yeah, you guys are interviewing the lead singer of Blowing for Soup, but there's a corner shop in Took that now sells Ferry Brewing. But yeah, I hadn't, like Colin says, so Ferry Brewing's Ferry Brewery is in South Queensferry, so it's not that far away from where we live. We've never been there.
That's how niche we are.
So I've got a question for you guys. Have you guys ever done this show hungover and had to then drink beer on the show at the same time? I bet Jeff has.
Not hung. Oh, we've been pished on the podcast quite a few times.
Oh, yeah.
Have you really?
Oh no,
Yeah.
not yeah. That time we went to the beer festival and then did a podcast at the pub afterwards. Yeah.
Oh my god.
It was amazing because the barman joined us because he didn't realize we were podcasting, and he sat down with a fag and was just like, "Evening, gents." Big shout out to Dougie the barman, because he now owns a cocktail mixing company that delivers Seven Kings Brewery to your door if you want to.
Oh.
Is that, I guess that's that base where you are, is it? Because I don't really want to come all the way down here.
So Dunfermline has Seven Kings buried in it because we used to be the ancient capital of Dunfermline. So this brewery is named itself after that. There you go.
That's amazing.
Mm.
Damn,
Comics,
dude.
beer, history lessons. I love it.
know.
That's it. Ben is saying good evening all.
Evening.
What's up, Ben?
Bensky is editor of the 77 comic. He's a bit of a big deal. everybody look busy.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Colin, are you in the bathroom?
Is it the decor?
I think so, yeah. It's not even on the shitter.
It's not the bathroom. And it's my wife's choice of decor. She hand painted.
Okay.
So,
That's
you know,
fine.
it's a good job. She's not here.
Yeah, I take it back. I don't mean to, slag off your wife's decor. It's beautiful. Stunning room.
she
What a
doesn't
lovely
want-
room you're in.
It's beer and
It's
comics.
beautiful as Bernie's mittens.
It's not
Right.
the Coronation Street podcast, so she won't know what.
Has Sandra ever been on the podcast? Has Sandra ever stumbled in for an episode? She hasn't yet, has she?
No.
No.
No, she's
Plenty of times.
Well, here she is now.
She's ever read a comic in her life. She'll occasionally sip one of my beers and go, "Bleh," and that's about it. That's her interest in what I do. Yeah, we have no interests in common. Though she does knit.
Oh, incredible.
Claire Jones is saying hello.
Hey.
One of Jamie's best friends.
Hello.
Oh, brilliant. Awesome. It's like, there's a girl here.
Beer and comics and there's a girl here. This is awkward.
So, yeah, what are you drinking just now, Jamie?
I am drinking an Aldi's Finest half-pipe session pale ale. I literally picked it up because it had a skeleton skating on it, and I thought, you know what, it looks quite cool. Because I don't really drink, to be honest, but I thought I'm coming to this show, so I'm going to make the effort. So I'll grab 2 beers. And you know what? It's actually pretty nice. Fruity hops with a zingy, bitter kick. It's actually really quite nice.
Aldi have a couple of we did a couple of episodes back to back where we decided that we were going to try and work out how sophisticated our beer drinking palate was. So Colin brought 4 beers to blind test, and then the next week I brought 4 beers to blind test. And I think one of the ones Colin gave me was that, and I actually said it was or on the same line as that, and I think I annoyed Colin and our local beer shop owner tremendously by picking that over like these really premium beers. That's a good one. Colin, what are you drinking?
Yeah, I've got that one from the Ferry Brewery.
I don't
know how you pronounce it. D-Up American Double IPA. Though at 6.5%, it's not particularly strong. Double tends to mean almost double strength, but
mine's 3.9%. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so it's pleasant enough. It's not very American-y. American-y beers, they have particular hops that they put in, and particularly in the sort of northeastern corner of USA, and also on the west coast as well. It's got fancy hops that have lots of kind of fruity citrus flavours in them, but I'm not getting a lot of that from that beer. It's a bit caramelly, but it's tasty enough. It's not. I wouldn't have called it an American IPA, but it's a good tasting beer. So who cares?
I had a double IPA on Saturday, and it total knocked me for 6. I was just like, it came from one of the Beer 52 boxes. I can't even remember what it was, but I was just like, I posted about it. Let me see if I can remember what it was. But I double IPAs. I forget how like boom they can be. That just when you're used to, like, I think if you were to pin me to the spot and say what's your favorite beer, I would probably say like a 6.2% ish New England IPA. So like when I forget when I have a double IPA, it was by Siren Craft Brewing have a double IPA called Scissors Paper Rock, and it was just a bit like I drank like I actually was sitting next to Claire when I drank it, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was just like, "Yeah, this is just a bit stronger." I was thinking it was me.
It's like you got smurfed.
Jeff is a total comes to beer. Let's face it, guys. He's a couple of tins and he's anyone's.
Oh, I know. Don't you worry about that.
Claire wants to point out that she's drinking Sex on the Beach Purple Rain.
That's basically because when me and her go to Wetherspoons, that's normally what we end up drinking because I'm a big girl and I drink cocktails.
Is there not cocktails though? This is the thing. This is why I brought this up, Claire. So Sex on the Beach is one cocktail. Purple Rain's a second. Is it? She just blended 3. I'm drinking alcohol.
Yeah, pretty much. No, it is 3 separate ones, but I suppose when you get the dregs in each glass, it kind of makes one cocktail by the time you finish, doesn't it?
We used to have a nightclub in Dunfermline that you used to pay a tenner to get into, and they gave you a plastic tumbler as you entered, and as long as you kept that plastic tumbler, you didn't have to pay for any more drinks for the rest of the night. But it didn't get washed, and by the end of it, you were like taking shots and beer and all this nonsense, and it was absolutely rank. And that nightclub is now a buffet restaurant.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if that's vile or genius. It's like a mix of the two.
The behaviour of the folk there was quite vile. Yeah, Claire wanted to point out that was Jamie's drink of choice. Was that Sex on the Beach?
I love a Sex on the Beach. I ain't going to
complain. I'm drinking this raspberry oat pale ale from Fears called Cranachan Killer, which is like drinking a cake. It's quite so it take Cranachan's that is Cranachan that kind of porridgey raspberry thing, Colin.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, it's a dessert. Yeah, it's like cream and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what it tastes like. It just tastes like if you could imagine that dessert in a can.
Have you ever tried that Vocation blueberry waffle?
I think I have, yeah.
Yeah. You reviewed it once, didn't you?
I put it on Instagram. Oh my mother of God. It is delicious. It's like breakfast in a can. It's wonderful.
Yeah. There is a whole range of beers called dessert in a can. Can't remember who it is that makes them.
Is it Bassland to do it? No.
Might be, yeah, could be. Pecan brownie with cream and fudge cake and all that kind of stuff. Sounds pretty amazing to me. I haven't tried them yet.
Oh, tell me message me how to get that. I need to get it now.
Raspberry beers. I think raspberry flavored beers are amongst my favorite. Asklang did. I had one like it was like raspberry pancakes last year. As well. You can stick oat and stuff, and just it gives it kind of that. It gives it a cakiness to it. So you guys are near it. Well, and correct my geography. Tom, you're in Cheltenham just now, or are you back in Gloucester?
I'm in Cheltenham.
Yeah. So you're quite near the. So you're quite near the border. I don't think you are, but you're relatively close to Wales, aren't you? You can,
Correct.
I remember speaking to you before, and you can go for weekends in Cardiff. Is that right? Kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not at the moment, but you can.
Yeah. No. Cardiff have got a brewery called Tiny Rebel. I don't know if you
Yes, I've been there.
And they're I'm so very jealous. They do a lot of kind of desserty beers that are incredible.
Rhubarb and custard is a particular favourite.
Yeah, they're it's a good one. They're a Stay Puft Marshmallow Porter, and it's thousands of different varieties. Like
that mushroom, even marshmallow, even porter thing is horrible. It's the most disgusting thing I've ever tried. I do not like it at all. It would just I don't know what it. I just don't like marshmallow anyway. So that's probably why I don't like it. Shock.
You don't like marshmallows
because they're odd and fluffy. Yes, Cardiff is a great place, Kevin. I agree. Spot on, sir.
Odd and fluffy.
It's just weird. It's just I don't know. It just tastes like it's just nothing, is it? Really? What is it? What actually is marshmallow? It's just a white. What is it?
A made up thing.
Yeah, it's not even real, guys. Who invented that? Get in the bin.
It's marshmallow. Odd and fluffy. 1 out of 10.
You like that beer?
Shall I go, mate? Sorry. Shall I leave now?
Claire's on fire tonight, by the way. She needs to just... She's got some marshmallows right now. So...
So, Jamie, I thought it was interesting. You'd kind of picked up your beer based on the tin design.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. That's a good way to do it. We do that as well. In fact, Jeff has a bit of a story about doing that with your son.
Oh, a lot of my favourite beers are I've discovered because my 5-year-old enjoys coming to the beer shop. We have a comic shop, and our beer shop and our comic shop are only a couple of doors down from each other. So, which is kind of what inspired the podcast in the first place, because it was just amazing that we had two passions right next to each other. And a big part of my Saturday pre-lockdown was to go to each of the shops as part of a big walk I do with my young one. He totally loves the beer shop, and a lot of the beer cans I buy are just because Sonny likes the can art. So I have discovered some amazing beers. Also, there's an annoying thing in craft beer and craft beers. Also, I find that I buy a lot of my beers on the strength of the can art, and often they oversell the product inside. So that can sometimes happen as well. I don't want to name specifics, but there was one a couple of years ago that sold me on the fact that I love Bruce Springsteen and I love really fruity beer. And this was like this beer catered for both of those within its can design, and it was really disappointing.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Just probably related to Bruce Springsteen himself, to be fair. That's probably why. both sound like shit, taste like shit, sound like shit. I'm joking. No, to be fair though, his new album is actually all right. I actually quite enjoyed it, I'll be honest. So
real fans don't listen to anything past 1992 though, so you are wrong.
I never claimed to be mind you, I never claimed to be a Green Bay Raiders fan either.
No, I just like
you just what?
I like American football t-shirts.
Okay, that's fine.
It was almost a Tennessee Titans t-shirt, but yes, I am a Green Bay Packers fan. But you can't buy any of their t-shirts because they sell out really quickly because they're so awesome. So,
I mean, you'll get to the Super Bowl, mate, but you won't win it.
Here he goes.
Yeah, I think we'll win.
I think Buffalo will be there. I think Buffalo will be there, and there'll be a game and a half. I tell you, it's going to be incredible.
It'll be amazing, but Buffalo don't have Rodgers, so
no, they've got Josh Allen, who will just tear you apart.
He was. We'll move on in 30 seconds, but I did have a conversation with Tom, a very brief conversation with Tom earlier this week, where we were talking about. I was in a group chat about American football where we mentioned that Rodgers has been the best American footballer on the planet this year, and I think he's a standout for MVP. But then I think Josh Allen's probably the only one that's got. I personally think Josh Allen's the only one that's got any kind of other claim to be this season's MVP. But
yeah. I'll be honest. I'm trying to think now off the top of my head really quickly, but I can't think of anybody that stood out quite like Josh Allen has. I mean, Kyler Murray's had a season and a half, but obviously didn't make the playoffs. So, yeah, man, I don't know. I just think Buffalo are going to beat the Chiefs on Sunday, and I think Buffalo are going to win the Super Bowl. And I'm a Steelers fan, and we just signed Dwayne Haskins, by the way. Why? Yeah. But I think Bills pack a Super Bowl, and Bills are going to win. That's my prediction. And if I'm wrong, we'll have a little wager. So.
Oh yeah, I think the same. I think it's going to be a Bill Packer Super Bowl, but I think Packers will win. Okay. That's my. I'm a Packers fan. Yeah.
Digression from that old Super Bowl fight there. Yeah, sorry, James. Sorry, Colin. Do apologise.
What about so we've had a wee beer check. What about comics? You guys read comics? I know Jamie mentioned a few times that you read comics.
I read comics when I can. It's not very often, to be honest, because it's affording them, if I'm honest, because I don't have that much expendable money. But I did pick up one not that long ago from. It was one of a guest of ours we actually had on the show, and we just talked about it, and he sold me on it. It was awesome. It was a really cool book. And so yeah, I thought I'd bring that along, as I thought, I'll bring a beer and a comic. There you go. It's the Crimson Six by Hazen Cockrell. It's awesome. It's basically a group of 6 superheroes, and what he's done is every hero is based on a form of metal music.
Oh wow!
So it's got like a guy that moves really fast. He's based off speed metal, and there's like this big burly guy, and he's like based off death metal and stuff like. And the main villain is like based on disco music, and has got hearts everywhere and all sorts of stuff. It's a really cool book. I really enjoyed it. It's a fair play to him, and so I thought I'd bring that along. And the art is just stunning as well. I'm trying to find.
Does he do it all? Does he write it as well? I can't remember now. The interview was so long
ago.
Yeah,
he writes, he draws, everything. And it's never work out the cameras on these things.
See you later, Jeff.
Bye, Jeff.
One for us to check. Cool.
The artwork is absolutely stunning. Like, does it all himself. And he's working on the sequel to it at the moment as well.
We're not impressed with that, Jeff.
No. I love what I love. No, I dropped out so that Jamie could get more screens, so he could film his. I didn't leave in protest.
I thought Jeff was like, fuck that guy.
I was thinking, it's one of the things I love about comics is the ability to it's a medium that allows you to tell the stories you want to tell, and as a result, you get some really incredible, like. Just as a concept, the idea that all the superheroes represent different forms of metal, the metal genre is incredible. That's just that's amazing, and it's not something that I can imagine being replicated or presented in any other forum. It's quite niche, which comics are.
It's really, it's not like on the nose like this guy. He sits in his room and he listens to Dragon Force. It's just like the design and the way that they move and the way they talk and stuff like that. You can see that's where he's gained inspiration from for each character. It's really clever. I absolutely loved it. But like the big guy there, like you can tell that's a guy based on death metal because he's just big, covered in spikes and stuff like that. And you got the guy based on hair metal. He's got the long hair, the shoulder pads and stuff like that. It's really cool.
That's cool.
But I like to give Hayden a little shout out whenever I can because he was such a cool dude and it was his first ever book. And he absolutely fucking smashed it. So,
wow, that's impressive.
Cool. We need to check him out. That sounds great.
Well, we could always send him your way, guys.
That would be really, really cool. That would be amazing.
Yeah,
we shall.
And stuff, particularly if he's got a second book coming out. We tend to get guys on quite a lot just before they're about to bring something out, or they've just got their thing on Kickstarter. So that would be really, really smart.
Cool. I'll hook you up.
Tom, you don't read comics, do you? You're that guy of the Cop podcast this week, aren't you?
I do own comics. I own the Walking Dead series up to book 17, and I own the Power Rangers series. Mighty Morphin to 5 and Go-Go to 2 at the moment. Not that I've read any of them. But I've got. It's just that I just really enjoy collecting them. I don't know why. I just really enjoy collecting stuff. I will get around to reading them at some point. But as far as I remember, I've read probably the first couple of Walking Dead ones and loved it. And then that was about 5-6 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I just collected it and then never read it.
Our local comic shop has a special variant edition of Walking Dead #1. So
really,
yeah, very few. I think it was open. It was a special thing that the Image did for comic shops a couple of years ago. They offered this chance of having a special variant cover. So there's like 500 in the world, right? So on the first issue of Walking Dead, Rick is walking past a window of a shop. The windows all smashed in and stuff. So what they've done is replaced the shop with the Little Shop of Heroes comic shop. So they still have copies, and they're super rare. People have bought them from all over the world because they want to collect the whole set for all the different comic shops that went for it. But I think there were only 2 comic shops in the UK actually went.
No way! That's amazing.
So how niche
is the only comic my mum owns? Is that look? My mum came with me to Dunfermline Comic Con and was like, "I need to get that. That's really smart." So my mum owns that. That's the only comic she owns. Is that Walking Dead #1?
That is so cool.
That's cool. But one of the shows on USUK called The Weekly Bazaar. One of the old hosts for Nat Shane, he is the singer in a band with Charlie Adlard, who obviously drew The Walking Dead. Yeah, we've been every now and again we're like, Shane, do you want to put us in touch? Like, he's really busy.
That's really smart. Walking Dead series.
That is vile. Oh no, I'm not a fan of that one.
Well, talk us through it, Jimmy. First off, you've not got any glass, but we'll forget that, okay?
That's the Brel Belgian style. It's a Belgian style IPA featuring a complex hoppy profile and underlying fruity character of coriander and orange peel. Yeah, not a fan. Oh, I picked it up because of that sounds intriguing. Let's give it a try. No.
Yeah. Belgian beer.
Yeah, no.
Made with special yeast, which gives it a very distinctive flavour. And it's Marmite, it really is. You like it or you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, who puts herbs in a beer?
Man, it's all right. Usually it's all right. I know Jamie's not demonstrating that to the full ability.
Not a fan of that one.
Oh, it's like a caramel wafer, and I put a little bit of oregano in there. It's wonderful.
Just like my wife. She's funny me for that. Like when we had that chili beer, wasn't it? Do you remember that?
Oh yes, yeah, chili beer. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was good. And Claire was just like
chili beer.
Yeah, why did you put chili in it?
Afterwards, it was it was nice taste, but a little while later it was.
Johnny Cash moment.
Yeah.
Oh, what have you been reading this week? What's your blather?
Me? What have I been reading? Well, so I guess since we've been talking about rock music, I've been reading This Damned Band, which is about a rock band called Mother Father. I think they wanted to call it something else, but maybe couldn't really put that on the cover. And it's pretty bizarre. So it's set in the 70s. It's about this rock band, and they're getting a documentary made about them. It's a bit Spiral, this is Spiral Tap kind of thing. But one of their hooks, like a lot of rock bands in the 70s, was that they were into the occult. But it's just a it's
like a gimmick.
I hate using that word because you use it all the time. It's their gimmick, that they're into the occult, but they're not really. But it turns out that maybe they are, because they take a bad trip on some Japanese mushrooms. I'll get the exact type of mushroom if you want, but they take this bad trip on some mushrooms while they're on their Japanese tour, and Satan turns up at their after party, and then they all have kind of different recollections of what exactly happened at this after party, but everything kind of spirals. Their whole lives spiral out of control after that, And it turns out, or it seems that actually maybe one of the band was an occultist after all and had made some deal with the devil. So wow. It's a pretty odd story. And like I say, they've got like a documentary crew going around with them. So sometimes it's like the people are talking to you, but they're actually talking to the documentary filmmakers. So they're talking directly to you through the comic page, you know. And then it's really bizarre because, you know, it's lovely artwork and everything. I mean, it looks great. And then here's the bit where they discover this sort of like occult place in this big mansion where they're doing some recording. But there's bits of it where the documentary crew aren't there. And what they do is they change the art style completely to this sort of like off the wall, zany kind of Tintin look. And it says, our camera crew was not present at the following scenes, which are represented by artwork depicting the testimony of the band, which I thought was quite clever.
Oh, that's really clever.
Yeah. So it's a totally nuts anarchic, you know, it's all, you know, they live the rock and roll lifestyles, you know, sex, drugs and rock and roll, and their cult. And things don't turn out necessarily how they expect that. You know, there's loads of effects on the band. One of them is where their dealers decide it's time that they actually paid their bills, and they turn up with a sort of a bunch of armed goons to extort money out of them. So that's great, with hilarious consequences.
With hilarious consequences.
So, what made you pick that book up? Did you read like what it was about? Was it just the really striking cover? Because it's a really cool concept.
I remember it coming. It's about 5 or 6 years old, this book. I remember it coming out and kind of seeing it and liking the kind of cover, the you know, that very 70s psychedelic kind of look.
Yeah, the psychedelic stuff.
But actually, I bought it because it was going into lockdown and like the local comic shop was having to shut. So I thought I'd just buy a whole pile of books. And this one, I just kind of, I don't know, it was calling out to me off the shelf. So
after you're on that high, he's like, whoa, dude, that looks awesome. I'll have a bit of that, cheers.
That's interesting. I don't know if you can recommend it or not. It's pretty zany stuff. I mean, it's off the wall. If you like, you know, the Spinal Tap stuff, maybe it might be your kind of thing. I do actually quite like the writer, Paul Cornell. He did my favourite ever Batman spin-off called Knight and Squire. And in that, Batman exists in every country in the world. They have their own Batman and Robin. And Britain's is Knight and Squire. But what he did was he wrote this story about them, which is like a carry-on movie. So if Batman, you know, even camper than the 60s Batman TV show, mixed in with a carry-on movie, Carry On Batman. And it's total nuts, and I loved it. And I guess that was maybe a bit of an attraction. And
that's such a cool idea.
So you said that was Paul Cornell that wrote that, yeah?
Yeah.
No, he's like, and when you said that name, I was like, oh, where did I know that name? He writes a lot for Doctor Who, doesn't he?
That's right.
Yeah, I recognise the name there. So, oh, he's written he wrote actually Father's Day, which he was a screenwriter for Father's Day, which is a really awesome Chris Eccleston story, and he wrote a two-parter. He wrote the two-parter Family Human Nature, the Family Blood episode. I don't know if anyone watches Doctor Who, but that was a really cool two-parter where the Doctor hid his consciousness into a pocket watch, and it was that's pretty cool.
Nice.
That's a good crossover, Colin. I like Paul Cornell.
I bet Paul Cornell. A couple of years ago, I was in London.
That's well cool. I got I wanted to talk very briefly about Shift 2 is superb, by the way. But it's Shift is a new anthology series that is quite incredible. But before that, I wanted to. We often talk about like Kickstarters and stuff like that, and like things we backed. And I got this today from Jason Everett, who we had on the show a couple of months ago. So this is his Kickstarter, and I first wanted to point out like local, like being a comic creator is a it's not a full-time job. Obviously, it's also not like, and it's a passion project. A lot of the stuff you do is a passion project. I want to point out I spent $15 in total on this project. For one, and Jason's just an absolute dude, but I paid $15 for the hard copy of this comic plus postage, and I want to point out that he spent $24.50 just getting me the comic here, and he won't take money off me. So I wanted to point that in mind. I know I've been really, really lucky. I know, Colin, you've talked about being bit by the postage bug before when you've been putting stuff out. But I was like, why did it cost $24 and why did I only pay $7? It's because he sent me, again, this is the thing when you back Kickstarters, and Stephen Tanner talked about this as well as on the show, like you want to look after your backers because they're folk that a lot of comic creators will, if you back a project on Kickstarter, the people that you're backing really want to look after you because they're like, well, actually, you backed this project before it was, anyone can go into a comic shop and buy a comic, but you bought this comic before it existed. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, nice wee letter, Colin, that I'll photograph and send to you because I can't give it to you. But he thanked us for being on the show, and then he gave you a copy of Kid Chaos alongside my copy, which is really cool. So Kid Chaos is a really awesome comic everyone needs to check out. I know Jamie and Tom really like their music, so it's a superhero story set in a near future. But one of the standout sort of gimmicks of the comic that I really liked was during set scenes there was a suggested listening list at the top. So like, if you're going to read this page, please go into Spotify and check out this song kind of stuff. And he has like
that's so clever.
Comic's got a playlist, which is really smart. And that's cool. And I pointed out that I really liked the variant cover edition of Kid Chaos. So we sent a variant version of the comic for us as well.
What a dude.
What a dude. Cheers, Jason. So yeah, everyone should check out Kid Chaos by Scorched Earth Comics. And say hi to Jason. Yes, Tom.
I hate to be a penis, but my battery's about to die. So I don't want to disappear. So I thought I'd graciously bow out. Not that I want to, but I've got no choice. I'm very sorry. I do apologise massively. That's 8 minutes to fucking go as well. Huh? You what?
Not okay. It's not okay.
I'm so sorry. I will make it up to you.
Just keep going till it dies.
Really? Like, I did that, and I'm gone. Yeah, literally like that.
Is there anything you wanted to say before we left then, Tom?
I just want to say, guys, thank you so much for having me. I've absolutely loved being on here. I'm so sorry to cut it so short. I do apologise. Like I said, I'll make it up to you in the future when I can actually charge my phone properly, and we'll do this properly. And also, everybody, come check out USUK Chronicles. These guys are doing an unbelievable show as well. Stick with the Brewgooders because they are legends in my eyes. But yeah, come check us out as well. Come listen to all our stories. What's going? You don't have to, but I'd really appreciate it. I would really appreciate it. Okay, thank you, guys. Yeah. Colin, Jeff, it's been an absolute pleasure. Jamie, I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Have a great rest of the show.
See you tomorrow.
Big love. Take it easy, guys. See you later.
Bye, buddy.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'll stick around.
No, please do. But yeah, I thought it was awesome. Kid Chaos is really good. And Jason's a total dude. Shift is probably my favorite comic just now. This is issue 2 of, and it's just really well written. My segue was going to be that. Do you know what else was set in the 70s? Colin, was communist Russia, and because there's a tiny acts of violence.
Yes,
is incredible. So it's a tiny acts of violence.
Is in it as well, and that exists as a separate book already. You can get the whole thing.
Oh, excellent!
Violence. It's just been serialized in Shift.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, so Shift's a monthly anthology series. So it contains. It's quite beefy. Contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 serialized stories. Actually, I thought Chance was a one-off this year. This week, Chance was was the first story written by Hal Larrin about a sort of what looked like a kind of like just a really awesome story, kind of like a space marine kind of, reminded me like the Space Marines in Warhammer, but he has all these guns and he's shooting this monster, and he's given this kind of rhetorical conversation about I can't give up. If I give up, the world dies and stuff like that. And then as the story progresses, you realise that he's maybe not actually where he thinks he is, and he's receiving radio transmissions through his helmet that initially start off as a like, you need to do this, it's our only hope for the saving of mankind, and all that, again, kind of super like alien baddie, like space sci-fi kind of shooty stuff that you would normally expect in a comic. But as it progresses, you realise that the radio transmissions get weird, and like his children start talking to him through his helmet, and that, and it's it was just a really smart one-off story that I think that it's a medium of storytelling that lends itself really well to these anthology comics where you're like, what, 8 to 12 pages. You fall in love with a character, you fall in love with a premise, and then it total gut punches you at the end. And it's like, it's amazing. I just really enjoy Shift. Foot Soldiers, which was one of my favorite favorite stories from issue 1, continues on, which is like a group of superheroes that use the powers of old superheroes by like robbing their shoes.
It's a weird one. I like that.
Superheroes that had some object or clothing that kind of gave them powers. So these new people get these objects and inherit the powers, including a pair of shoes.
That makes more sense. Like, Superman shoes are left around here. I'll try these on.
Yeah. But yeah, I did really enjoy it.
Left at the bottom of a phone box.
So yeah, I just really enjoyed that. So everyone should check out Shift. Issue 2 is out now. Issue 3 should be out quite soon though. You're just going to check it out if you can grab it. I think you can get it digitally and stuff. It's just a really awesome series.
Yeah. It can be ordered through Diamond, so like local comic shops can order it in.
Yeah. I did this issue 1 had this really awesome story about I think I reviewed it at the time. It's probably one of my favorite things I've read in quite a while, about this bounty hunter who this psychotic robot bounty hunter that like keeps doing horrendous things to the folk he's trying to hunt down and then billing them, which was like my favorite thing ever. So like he blew up a planet, or he blew up a spaceship, so the guy had to crash land on a planet, and then he billed the guy for the damage done by the explosion plus the cost of the explosives. And so, and as he's hunting these guys down, he's reading them their bill. He's like, why did you blow that up? And he's like, it was the only way to get you on this planet. By the way, the explosives cost 50,000 credits. I've added it to the cost of your. It's like, it's just that kind of stuff, and it was just a really funny ongoing joke. And I was reading it like, this is fab, beautifully drawn, everything in there is beautifully drawn as well. I should add, art's great. That was my big comics. Awesome. Big comics happenings. Was there anything else that happened in the world that you wanted to talk about, Colin?
In the world? What's the thing happening in the world this week?
Yeah.
Or you mean in the comics world?
Comics, beer, all that stuff we like to bother about.
Well, comics world, everybody's got to check out on Kickstarter tomorrow. Blazer. So a new comic called Blazer, which is from the 77 team. So they're branching out into doing other comics, and Blazer is their first spin-off comic. It might be a one-off, but it's a kind of retro comic book. It's got a kind of premise that this was a comic book that was never brought out in the 1970s, and now it is getting brought out. But it's actually a comic that appears in this novel called The Sheer Glam Conspiracy, and this is this book here, an actual writing book, a word book, as we like to call them in the comics world, was written by Steve McManus, who used to be the editor of 2000 AD back in the 70s to 80s. And he brought out this novel a couple of years ago, I think. And it's basically, well, when I first heard about this, the idea was that it was a story that was based on real life, and it was the rivalry between two different comic producers, but with all the names changed to, save against getting lawsuits and stuff. But absolutely, isn't. If this is even 10% like real life, then I'm glad I was not part of the industry back in the 70s, because it's got like bizarre Nazi cults. It's got the biggest egos in comics, with the biggest set of weirdos writing comics and stuff. But anyway, in the story,
the 70s must be quite a cool time for. When I think about the 70s, or what I think about comics, and we talked about this with Bensky as well when we had it on, and sort of the start of 2000 AD. I think almost like music or any sort of counterculture. It's weird that you have like there's always like kind of there's generational shifts in culture. So obviously like Elvis Presley, Sun Records, Johnny Cash. That was kind of that was like 50s musical counterculture to kind of a lot of the gospel stuff that was happening in like the late 40s, early 50s, and then that almost became the status quo for music. So then, like when you moved into the 60s, you had like the Beatles and that revolution. So actually, even though Johnny Cash and that started out as kind of counterculture, they became like the ones to rebel against. And then in the 70s, it happened again with punk, and then it kind of happens like that. And I've read quite a lot about comics, and it feels like 70s must have been quite an interesting time to be a comic writer, because obviously Marvel happened in the 60s, and you had like Marvel was very, I think, evocative of the 60s and that kind of counterculture that existed in the 60s. But then Spider-Man and that became like the status quo, and then like I think like things like 2000 AD and like comics like Action and things like that were very were rebelling against that. You know, like comics should be, it became, comics used to be about guys on the street telling stories, and it's now like guys in tights flying around. So we need to go back to that. And then obviously then 15 years later, Sylvester Stallone produces like a multi-million-dollar movie about that counterculture and ruins it. And it's these kind of cycles, like that would be really interesting.
So 70s was when kind of there was lots of British comics. It was a big revolution in British comics in particular, with the comics that you mentioned, Action, Battle, all the stuff that DC Thompson produced, Warlord, then obviously 2000 AD. So then there was a big rivalry between companies, particularly DC Thompson in Scotland and like Fleetway IPC in England. And 1 week one brought out a new war comic, and then the next week the other company, had caught wind of it, and they brought out their new war comic. So there was a big rivalry, and that's kind of where this story's about. But obviously, a lot of it is fictionalized. But where Blazer comes in is that one of the companies is working on a new comic, and they've drafted in a couple of secretive writers who are locked in a sort of darkened room working on this comic. And at the end of the book, there is a whole bunch of comic scripts, which is for issue 1 of this comic, which in the book is actually called Blaze. And what the 77 have done is they've teamed up with Steve McManus, and they're going to produce this comic, actually make it. But it's going to be called Blazer, and that's particularly because Marvel already has had a Blaze comic in the past. So yeah, just to avoid any confusion or litigation, I guess it's called Blazer. So it's coming to Kickstarter tomorrow. There's going to be a bit of a launch party. And yeah, it looks cracking.
Let's see if this works. Here we go. So that's the pre-launch page just now. So you can click here, notify me on launch, and then tomorrow morning I'll get an email saying this is live. Please back us. That's quite exciting.
Yeah. I think if you're of that era and you were into the comics at that time, definitely something to look at. But even if you're not, I think there's going to be something for everybody in it. It is an anthology. So there's a kind of war story, there's action stories, there's a kind of cop story.
Do you know who my favourite in Action was, Colin, back in the day? Do you know who my favourite character in Action was?
Was it a fish?
It was a fish.
Was it Dory from Finding Nemo?
I wasn't. I need to send Jamie some Hookjaw stuff just so there's this character that came out in Action, and it was a comics, and it was I think Action was kind of known for it used to do a lot of stuff, like it would make a comic that kind of had a loose attachment to a film that came out round about the same time. And one of their most enduring characters, to the point that he shows up in 2000 AD every so often and has different companies doing graphic novels about him, is this shark called Hookjaw. And it's just this big, massive megalodon-shaped shark with a hook stuck in its mouth. He's just ace, and the stories get bizarre and bizarre. So the one Colin bought me one for my Christmas this year, and it was very much like it felt like if you got Quentin Tarantino to write a comic about a shark, this is what you got, and it was really cool. And then, but the most recent Hookjaw in 2000 AD went in a completely. It's great because it's like they give the writers carte blanche to just tell a total bizarre story, as long as they remember that you keep the basics. Hookjaw is this mythical shark that has a hook in its mouth and it does A, B, and C. But they had him emerging out of they had him emerging out of jacuzzi and swimming pools in the most recent. It was just great, and eating pears and shit, and it was just great. I was just I love that they're going mental with a shark, and the whole punchline is that for a lot of the whole Hookjaw mythos is if he becomes more dangerous the more folk become aware of him. So he used to be in the olden days, he was feared because he was the subject of sea shanties. So he was kind of powerful because sailors sung about him. But in the more recent sort of social media era, he's become almost unstoppable because folk are photographing him and tweeting him, and
that's so clever.
It's really smart. I think it's really smart. I enjoy it.
Freddy Krueger of sharks. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's why. But that's back to why I'm really excited about Blazer, is because I think the 77 guys are doing some really awesome stuff with this. Obviously, the 77 is kind of based on the 1977 was when 2000 AD came out. So that's kind of the first couple issues of the 77 are supposed to, and they're continuing to try and sort of encapsulate the spirit of the original 2000 AD series that started. And what's exciting about this is they're sidestepping into the roots of another kind of genre of comics, which is really, really from that same era, which is really quite incredible and quite exciting. And we hope to get the guys from the 77 on quite soon to chat about that, because they're really good guys. I've got nothing coming on Kickstarter. I wanted to talk. Has anyone watched Wandavision? That's not me. Yeah,
I've seen it.
Yep.
I wanted to talk about Wandavision because I'm a Marvel geek, and that is I just want to know what other folk think about Wandavision, because I've had different discussions with different friends. I really enjoyed it, but I've got friends. Dalek Spider-Man hates it. That's an exclusive.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed it. I don't know why people are hating it. I get it's not your normal MCU thing. There's no action and whatnot yet, but it's so clear that it's heading to something epic. Mm-hmm. You know, that bit with the beekeeper suit and the way she rewinds the time and everything, all this sort of stuff. You're like, this is going somewhere incredible. Spoilers for anyone that hasn't watched it yet. But,
I think you've got to watch the trailer. If anybody's seen the trailer, it gives you a bit more of an inkling as to what's happening. If you just watch the show, you're probably just going to go, what the fuck? But the trailer kind of gives you, not a spoiler, but just gives you an inkling of something happening behind the scenes.
Yeah. I think that's probably the only complaint that most folk have had. Folk are saying they want, like you said, they want it to move forward, and probably a more brisk pace is probably the main complaint that folk are having.
It's only been 2 episodes.
Yeah, they want to know what's going on. That's why, and people are not used to not being able to binge a whole series.
I was just asking to Dave Roper. Speaking to Dave Roper, who's a local legend in Dunfermline, and that was exactly what he said. He's like, I'm just going to wait till it comes out, Jeff, and I'll be able to binge it, and I'll get there quicker rather than having to wait every week. I was like, all right, okay. That's fair enough.
And at the end of the day, the MCU's been going over 10 years now. They've got to do something different every now and again. Just, try and keep people's interest. Because, you do the same thing every whatever project you do. People are going to get bored of it. It's going to be superhero fatigue. This is new. It's interesting. It's different. I absolutely love it. I think it's brilliant and really brave as well.
Oh, for sure. It's a superhero TV show where nobody's been punched yet.
Yeah.
It does things. I tried to explain it to Claire because trying to explain to my wife, who doesn't like anything superhero-y, was like she was sort of watching it while she was on her phone, and she was just like, "Why are you watching this? What is this?"
Yeah.
And I tried to explain. I was like,
"But how do you explain it? Because nobody knows what's going on."
Yeah. So I had to explain that to Claire. I was like, for anyone that's not seen the MCU, any of the more recent MCU movies, but we haven't seen Vision in over 2 years now. Is it over 2 years? I'm trying to do my math.
It was Infinity War, wasn't it? That's something.
Yeah. So I was like, we haven't seen Paul Bettany's character in over 2 years, and he died in a really horrific way twice. So the fact that he's here and he's telling jokes and he's all whimsy is quite incredible. And I was like, and the last time we saw Wanda in any sort of great way, she almost killed Thanos. Thanos had to literally turn his entire fleet against itself in order to not get murdered by her because she was so powerful. So I was like, the fact that these two incredibly complicated comic characters from this series, the last time we saw them, it was in these really incredible circumstances, and they're now in a 50s sitcom. That's the grab for a lot of the MCU guys. Is like, why are they there? What's happening? And then anybody, that first episode when the guy's choking and Wanda, everything's just a bit kind of funny and whimsy, and then at one point Wanda just turns around and she's like, Vision, help him. And then you're like, oh, okay. And then the thing with the Beekeeper, there's a lot going on, and if you're a comic geek like I am, you've obviously got House of M is kind of the vibes of House of M's in there, which is one of my favorite comics. And I've not read it, but I know of the Visions. But folk have told me that the Visions series is great, which is about Vision trying to start a family and have a suburban existence. So it's
he's not having much luck, is he?
No, he's not having much luck. So what are you familiar with the sitcoms that these have been based on?
I'm not familiar as in I've watched them, but I'm one of these people when I watch these sort of things, I like to go on YouTube and find one of those Easter egg videos for anything that I've missed. But there's things that did stand out. The second episode was clearly Bewitched. It's quite clear. And when you see them side by side, you're like, that is so clever the way they've done it. But the writing in it is amazing. I absolutely love even the comment is my husband is indestructible head. Obviously, we know the Vision's head is not indestructible.
Was it,
very clever. Merged these kind of 50s shows with the MCU. It's still keeping those little things that will keep fans hooked in to it. Enough to get over the fact that it's black and white and it looks like something their granny watched.
Just in the stuff even the sort of what I find quite incredible is even the comic-y, they've admitted there's only been, I think I can count a half dozen things that actually hark back to what they tie back into the MCU a wee bit. Even things like is it Monica Rambeau? She's there now, and I watched it with my 13-year-old Sean. He loves all the movies, and I pointed out that's who she was supposed to be. I was like, my understanding is Monica Rambeau is the wee girl from Captain Marvel, and he was like, yeah, A, that's amazing. B, why is she there? So if she was a little girl, and even that's what I think has grabbed me about the whole thing. I've got a 13-year-old who's really excited because he's like, why is the little girl from Captain Marvel now grown up, but now in the 50s? And I was like, yeah, that's what we all want to know, man, and that's why it's exciting.
I saw something that was the reason it's all these sitcoms is because obviously Wanda growing up in Sokovia, maybe that was the sort of program she watched. That was her idea of America. So this is her fantasy world. So it's like, this is what I want for me and Vision to have this. And I was like, that's so fucking clever. If that's what they're doing.
And you say the helicopters, is it the helicopter's a sword helicopter? And so in the comics, Sword are the agency that take over when S.H.I.E.L.D. disbands because of Hydra. So there's all this stuff as well. It's just good. I really enjoyed it. Intrigued. My friend Craig said, I was chatting to him about it. He was like, it left me intrigued, and I think that's what it was designed to do. So yeah,
I don't think it'll be like this forever. I think there'll be a couple more episodes like this. Even if the end of this third one, I reckon it might start moving.
I think it has to. I think the intrigue that they've captured in the first two episodes, like that worked for things like Lost, but I think you can only do that now for a wee bit.
I think also putting it out weekly has actually been the right thing to do in terms of marketing, and keeping people interested. You put it out and then it's gone. People won't talk about it in 2 weeks' time or month's time, but just come out weekly or whatever. It adds to the build-up of the suspense, and people will constantly talk about it and come up with ideas and theories and stuff. And that
it's really clever because Marvel have designed that, or Disney have designed that, I think, deliberately as well, because unless I've got my dates or my ideas mixed up, as soon as Wanda's finished, we're only like a couple of weeks, and then Winter Soldier starts, or Falcon and Winter Soldier I think that's like mid-March that starts. And then
there's not a massive gap between them.
And then Loki starts in May. So they've very cleverly, we've pretty much got a Marvel TV series to look forward to for the next half a year, which is pretty cool.
But to back what you said though about doing the weekly shows, is like The Mandalorian. For how long was everyone like, who's the Jedi that's going to turn up? Who's it going to be? Oh, it could be anyone. I reckon it's going to be. If that was all dumped in one load, have you not watched it?
Not yet.
I won't say anything. Okay, I won't say anything. But I'm just going to say, if they had dumped it all in that one load, you can guarantee after 3 days, and even if that in one day, it would have been all over the fucking internet.
Yeah.
And there wouldn't have been that conversation.
Like, I know I'm sarcastic to put my hands over my head, but I know what happens in the Mandalorian series season 2 because I've not caught up yet. So, and I think it's that's just the culture we are now, isn't it? You tell folk what happens, and I just thought, I thought in terms of comics and stuff, Wandavision was worth blathering about on the podcast because it was an odd one. I think a lot of people. It's left a lot of people totally bewildered as well because we've waited so long. When was Spider-Man Far From Home? Like July last year. So like
that's been a long time.
We waited a year and a half for some Marvel, and this is what they showed up with. Is so cool. So I'm excited about tomorrow's episode. Actually,
same.
Cool. Was there anything else you wanted to blather about, Colin?
No. What about you, Jim?
Was it? No. How about Jimmy? Is there anything you wanted to chat about? You've got somebody other than Tom to talk to for the days.
I don't know. I've chatted about everything I planned to talk about. Like I said, I was actually quite glad we got to chat about WandaVision because I can't really talk to Tom about these things because he doesn't fucking watch anything. That was the other reason we had to end Barfight, because the amount of times you'd bring up a hero, he's like, oh, never seen that. I don't know. The amount of times he'd go, I've got this character, and he'd describe them and everything. He's done his research, and I was like, oh, I remember that. And he's like, yeah, I've never actually seen the film. I just thought the character was cool. For fuck's sake.
Boy, that's so tough to do the bar fight with
that. Yeah, but it was good. It was great fun though. But when you bring in character,
I was just in the bar fight that you guys brought me on. I thought your character choices were really good and really inspired. And actually, we based
who was it the week you
our
were on
podcast on it.
Who was it the week you were on now?
Who did I have? I had Poison Ivy versus somebody.
Groot.
Yeah. The Godzilla versus the Megazord. Was that right?
Yeah, that sounds about right as well. We chucked loads out
there. Yeah.
My favourite episode of Barfight we ever did will always be Dr. Manhattan versus Wile E. Coyote, though. just because of the fight itself was terrible. It was just because of Tom. Because I literally would take it in terms of reading each other's character. Like I read all Doctor Manhattan's powers because I'd been on a losing streak. So I was like, "Fuck you, I'm winning this one." So I brought Doctor Manhattan, and then he was just like, "I've got birdseed," and I just died. I could not stop laughing.
Surely the Wile E. Coyote, he could just paint something that was so realistic that even Dr. Manhattan couldn't tell it wasn't real.
To be fair, I can't remember what it was now. It was ages ago. But in the group chat we have, I used to put a poll up every week on the USUK message board of like who people would think would win. And someone came up with this real elaborate reason why the Coyote would win. I was just like, fair play. You spent a lot of time thinking about that. That's quite impressive.
I think Wile E. Coyote there's a shout there because he's unkillable, isn't he? Like he should have been.
That was part of it. The fact that he can't die.
He can't die, so Dr. Manhattan can do whatever he wants. He can erase his matter from existence, and he'll just show up in the next scene with like on the back of the rocket.
Whatever.
But we had some so much fun on that show. I remember one of them. Tom was. I can't remember the character's name now, but basically the only power he had was electricity, and I turned up as Roberta the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. What's the one thing they used to stop the T-Rex getting out of the paddock that fails? An electric fence. I was like, you have the one thing that I know could beat me, you bastard.
So was it always totally random? Did you just go away and try and come up with like...
Yeah, we never told each other who we were going to be. Literally, we didn't know until we recorded, which obviously was a gamble because sometimes it can be like, yeah, I'll beat you, mate. That was easy, wasn't it? And then other times it was like, yeah, there isn't much of a fight here, is there? Because we always like to try and have silly characters as well. We didn't want to be like, right, Thanos versus Darkseid, who wins? You know, we come up with ridiculous things. So, you know, it was like, he brought Pac-Man one week. I think I brought Duke Nukem one week. It was just whatever random... I remember he brought the Demon Headmaster one week. It was just random people we thought of. It was Demon Headmaster versus John McClane. I remember that one. Because just to piss off all the action hero fans, we just said that the Demon Headmaster would make him shoot himself in the head. Job done.
Yeah, probably would. They would. Yeah.
Yeah. It was brilliant.
Up, Willis, look at the state of that vest.
Yeah, clean yourself. First change your top, then shoot yourself.
Sorry, sir. No, go for it.
I remember I emailed the author of the Demon Headmaster because when we were after guests, and I emailed and I was like, "Oh, we'd love to talk to you about it. We use your character on the show. We'd love to." And she asked for a link to the episode, and I was like, "Oh fuck." So I sent her. She emailed back saying, "I don't quite think you really understood what the character was, so I'm going to say no this time." It's like, damn.
Oh, that's incredible. Have you got any more like that? That's hilarious that you would be turned down by the author of the Demon Headmaster.
Yeah, no, that was the only one who really turned us down. We've had other people turn us down because like they're just too busy, or I've had people ask how much we were going to pay them. Just like, I ain't replying to you. Fuck right off. You know.
Have you guys emailed anybody that you thought, oh, there's no way this is just a shot in the dark and a hope, and then they've been like, yeah.
Mark Bernardin. Never expected that one. And Jarrett Reddick as well. Like Mark, are you familiar with Mark Bernardin? Do you know who he is?
I'm not in Coventry.
He's written comic books as well. What they are off the top of my head, I could not think. But he's also a screenwriter as well. He's written episodes for the new series of Picard that's coming out.
Oh, wow.
He worked on Tombstone, Treadstone. Yeah. A bunch of different stuff. But he also does a podcast with Kevin Smith. I'm a little bit obsessed with. So I just emailed him on a whim because he's such an interesting guy. The amount of stuff he does, like I say, screenwriter, podcaster, all this sort of stuff. And I was like, this ain't going to happen, but let's give it a try. An email back and it was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. I was like, okay, this is happening. Fuck. But some people I've emailed with no hope on ever getting a reply. And I never did get a reply, but I emailed Hulk Hogan last week. Never heard back. Thought I'd give it a try. I went on his Instagram page. He said contact email. I was like, fuck it, why not? Let's try.
Is that the process? And you just go through like certain pages, and if they've got contact details.
I tell you what, Instagram is a delight because it will have a link to their website where you can find contact information, or a lot of them do have contact with an email address. And that's how I found Jarrett Reddick. That's how I found other people. Just found their email address off their Instagram. Like Twitter's, no luck because half people don't have their DMs open. So you don't got a lot of hope on that one. Same with Facebook. It's not normally it's like someone runs the page for them or whatnot. But their actual website or Instagram has done nothing but delight for us. It really works really well.
I Instagram messaged Hanson because I wanted them to come on, but I'm like, hey, I'm just taking it. Hanson,
I tried that one too.
Oh, yeah, Hanson brew their own beer, so I'm like, oh, that they would be an amazing. Yeah. Guess what it's called?
Is it called
Hop? What's that?
Hop. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it right.
I thought I was coming up with a really clever play on words there, but they beat me to it. Damn it.
They did, but just they beat you to it. Fairness, they wrote this.
That's brilliant. I thought they were like, aren't they like oh shit, the name's gone out of my head now. Like Quakers, that sort of thing. Like some religious.
I'll need to ask my wife because my wife is genuinely like their biggest fan. Like she totally, they've been doing a lot of. Because, like, obviously, we all listen to Hop. We all listen to Hop and thought that's quite a nifty wee song, and then we forgot about them. But actually, it's a bit like I'm a massive Real Big Fish fan, and everybody remembers them on Basketball, that movie from the mid '90s, and then no one else remembers them. But they're a touring band, and so are Hanson. So Hanson have got like legions of loyal fans who stuck with them from the 1990s.
Middle of Nowhere is a cracking album.
Yeah, and they've been doing like live streaming concerts from. I'm trying to remember they're from Tulsa. They're from. I only know that because my wife, like every time they do a concert, she's like, "Go and buy me the stream." It's like, okay, well,
it's amazing. I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, they're on my list of guests that I would love to get on the podcast, which would be awesome.
It's awesome. It's awesome. It's a shame he's not here to talk about it there, but Tom really wanted to speak to this singer. His name's Braden Barry, and I messaged him for him and managed to get him on the show. And Tom was a mess during that episode because it was lovely because the guy has done a lot for Tom. He's really helped him through his music's helped Tom through a lot of like hard times and whatnot. It was really, really, really lovely, and I was so happy to get him on for him as a friend. But it was so funny because you could just see him like every time he's talking, Tom was always just like, "I love you." It was so adorable. But they talk now; they're like friends, and it's awesome. I love it.
That's really cool.
No, it's really, really.
Someday I will do something like that for Jeff.
Well, John Lee's was the big one, like because obviously we try I think the way we've kind of done it is we a lot of local guys, a lot of local comic writers and like local brewers have come on the show. We do drop-ins every so often where I will fire out a message onto independent, like indie or like grassroots comics Facebook pages because there's loads of them, comic creators to get something out, and just say like, look, our show runs from 8 till 9. Go and give me a message if you want to come in, and I'll book you in a slot. And we have these really interesting episodes where we've maybe got 5 guests in 1 hour, and they pop in, say hi, my name's
so cool.
This is my comic. You can find me on this website. We have a wee blather about stuff, and then they disappear. So we've had some really interesting guys. We've had a few guys from this up and coming comic company in America called Red 5 Comics. They're starting to get sort of national attention, and we've had a few of their guys. But that's the one thing I love about the podcast is we keep in touch with these folk, and Alex DeLuca is a good friend of mine, and he popped into a drop-in episode like last year, about this time last year. I put out a thing. He was like, "Yeah, I'll do an interview," and he's just a really good guy. That's what's really cool about the meeting folk thing. But yeah, Colin's been in the comic industry a wee bit longer than I have, so we've had like I was a mess when John Lees was on. I didn't really know when we had Callum Laird on, who was the former editor for Commando Comics. I just let Colin and Callum blather because I was just like, this is a total level of comicdom that even I don't feel I want to. It's comic royalty, and Colin, who I look up to in the industry. So I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to nod and say hi.
John,
That's awesome.
Next week, Jeff?
What's that?
How are you going to be next week?
I don't know. I don't know. Do you want to talk about next week then, Colin? Who have we got?
Well, we talk about next week. Okay,
Yeah,
so next week we have got some comic legends coming on the show. I've already mentioned one of them already today. So because the Blazer comic is launching tomorrow on Kickstarter, next week we should have Steve McManus, so former 2000 AD editor and writer of all the stories in Blazer, and we should also have at least one of the artists, namely Mr. Dan Cornwell, who is also well known for doing Rock of the Reds with John Wagner in the last few years. So they've both said they're going to be on the show next week. So two British comic legends.
The one that I love about Steve McManus, I'm going to pop up here. A lot of folk forget that Steve was Tharg. So when you opened up your 2000 AD, you always get a wee bit from Tharg on the inside, and that was Steve McManus for a long time. So it's like, we're actually going to have Tharg on the show. That's really, really smart. Awesome. I think that's us, yeah?
Wonderful.
This is
having me on, guys. It's been awesome.
Thank you for joining. This is how we end the podcast. We're just like, have we stopped talking? Yes.
I'm definitely going to have to go because I'm dying for a wee. I'm not going to be honest with you.
Welcome.
We get life as well.
Yeah. But, thank you so much for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. Everyone who's watching, please go to usuknetwork.com. Go check out our website. You can find all the shows on there. You can see all the amazing interviews we've done recently. This week, dropped yesterday, was Ryan O'Connor. He hosts an Instagram page called WrestleBotch. Basically posts awesome botches in wrestling throughout the years. He's had people like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Sid Vicious, all these people just comment on his videos and stuff like that, having a laugh at their peers and stuff like that. Just blew up for him. It's a really fun conversation. Definitely check that one out.
I'm looking forward to that. Awesome.
See you.
Cheers,
massively
guys.
appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers.